Hey there, it's Jessica Hartley here to talk about love, sex, and relationships. And today I just want to do a brief overview of what I consider to be the 6 fundamental core principles of lasting relationships. As in, what does it take to make a marriage last, to make it not just last, but to thrive, so that you're 80, 90 years old, still holding hands, ever so in love with your best friend. So I've talked a little bit about some of these things, but for those of you that perhaps haven't watched any of my videos or seen any of my content, I'll just review them again. So the first and most fundamental thing is to be able to navigate through conflict. When a client comes to me and their marriage is on the brink of divorce, and they're like, hey, I don't know what to do, I'm trying to resolve this, the very first thing that I teach them is how to navigate through conflict, because that is the most immediate. You see, we tend to get into situations or experiences in our relationship where we are differing so much from one perspective to the other, and it creates that conflict, and that conflict causes such a huge rift in the relationship, so much pain, so much everything that doesn't really need to be there and isn't really meant to last in the relationship, to be said in the relationship, to disrespect and betrayal and criticisms, and so the list goes on. All of the things that are very, very harmful and very corrosive, meaning what degrades the relationship, what is the most destructive, is the conflict. So it comes down to that, and it's so essential to know a path to connection when you're faced with conflict. So how do I most effectively move from the conflict that's in front of me right now back to connection with my spouse, with my partner, with the love of my life, with my friend, with my mother? It doesn't matter really who it is, but it's being able to navigate through that conflict that's present right now. And so this is a cornerstone. This is a very fundamental principle or tenet that I lay out as number one, is being able to know how to navigate through and past the conflict and back to connection with this person that is so near and dear to you. Okay, so number 2 is then to know how to heal your own wounds. So this kind of goes with the first one, but it is also very different, because conflicts do trigger our wounds that we received from childhood for the most part. And then they get reinforced year by year as it goes on. And these wounds are triggered for a reason. Now, I've addressed this in previous videos, but our relationships are one of the best, most, what is the word? The most conducive for our own personal growth and upliftment and enlightenment even. It's our relationship that gives us this gift, but we have to know how to use it, because when we don't know how to use it, we let that conflict trigger our wounds and then react, and then we move our relationship into some place that we really didn't want it to be. We become someone that we really are not. And it is because we are not using our relationship as it's meant to be, in the sense of allowing us to grow, to allow our relationship to be a reflection back to us of what we have going on inside, and the issues or wounds or heartbreaks or betrayals or pain inside of us from past experiences that is ready to be released back into the nothingness from where it came. So that means that, number one, changing your perspective into what a relationship really is behind all of the good things of companionship and shared experience and belonging, is that it has a deeper gift in there for us. And so we can then look at even the conflicts, even the painful parts with gratitude and appreciation, because every single conflict is absolutely an opportunity for you to grow. I guarantee you. There's no way around that. See, it's just part of the fundamental principles of our life. Whenever we face conflict, it's a new, if I have a trigger, it's a new opportunity. It presents itself as a new, or sometimes a reoccurring, actually, oftentimes it can be a reoccurring opportunity for our growth. So, healing your wounds is the cornerstone of being able to move through that and to have a thriving relationship and to use the conflict for your own selfish reasons of inner peace. And that is absolutely the purpose of that when you heal your wounds. It's for your own inner peace. It's not for their inner peace or so you can something else to the world. It's for your inner peace. It's for your own well-being. And it is so essential because if you can't bring yourself and in a grounded way, in a loving way, in your authenticity of who you really are, outside of your triggers and wounds and walls and blah, 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 then you're not really bringing yourself into the relationship at all. And so when our relationship triggers that, it helps us to become even more authentic, not only in our relationship, but in our everyday, day-to-day lives. So number 3 then is to be able to maintain trust and integrity. And that now is sort of piggybacking on number 2, but it is also different in that this is about, so for a lot of people, it's about being able to build trust. You know, sometimes there's been so many betrayals and now we have to rebuild trust. Often that's what I start, people off with sometimes, depending on where they're at, is, okay, let's just start at the ground floor and rebuild this trust. And sort of learning to take trust and integrity with a new perspective and it's sort of a new paradigm of what it is and how it works in a relationship that is not dependent on the other person for my own happiness. So that means not needing that person, my partner or the other person in the relationship, to do A, B, C, or D in order for me to be happy. And so there's a very big shift there. And so knowing how to maintain that level, number 1, first cultivate it, and then number 2, to maintain that level of trust and integrity within your relationship for you and for the relationship is number 3. So then number 4 is having the ability to maintain the passion and desire in the relationship. Now, because this is a very important aspect to a romantic relationship, it's the one thing that really makes this relationship unique from all the others. So our physical connection, and many of as you start to go in your relationship, you start to get used to that person. You start to take them for granted. You start, it's no longer new and exciting. And so it's important to know exactly how do I bring myself forward and cultivate the passion and desire forward from my partner. So that's a twofold direction. It's not just one way. Oftentimes people think, well, I want more passion and desire, but my partner does not. And so therefore we don't have it. And that's absolutely false. That's not how it works. See, we have to first cultivate within ourselves what we want in our relationship and in our partner. So if you're not seeing it in your relationship, it's a reflection that you're not really truly owning it inside of yourself. And so knowing how to own and cultivate that within yourself and then draw it forth and use that sexual energy when and where you want it, and also how to tone it down. I could speak from personal experience that sometimes it's like you've got to learn, when and where to bring it up and when and where to pull it down, and to really manage and maintain that sexual energy, because it is so vital to the relationship, so much fun to the relationship, but it's also got to be in balance. And so that's part one. And then part two is knowing how to cultivate and encourage and help your partner with their sexual energy, or cultivate it forward, or allow your relationship to be a reflection of that sexual energy and connection. For some people, actually a lot of people, but not everyone, that physical connection is one of the most important things in a romantic relationship. Because it is the one thing that makes you unique. So oftentimes that's why there's such a big stigma around, affairs or betrayal, because it's the one thing that it holds this as more sacred or more unique, so there's a lot around that. It's not something to ever dismiss in the relationship. So if you're not aware of how to cultivate and draw forth your own sexual energy and how to cultivate that in the relationship, that's something I highly encourage you to really seek out for the betterment of your own energy, and also for your partner and for your relationship. So number 4 now then is to know exactly how to speak your voice, and so that when you have something meaningful to say or your own perspective, sometimes this comes into call when you're moving through a conflict, but I'm not just talking about conflict navigation. I'm actually talking about when there's something important to you, and you want to stand up for something, and you know that your partner is likely to disagree with you or has a very different perspective. And you want to be able to speak your voice or say what's important to you in a meaningful way, in a way that you'll be understood, and in a way that you'll be well received. So this is also such an important and vital aspect of relationship communication. When you ask people that are thriving in their relationships into years and years and years, oftentimes what they say is good communication is essential. But it's not just that. It's being able to say what's on your mind in a way that creates mutual respect and doesn't trigger them and doesn't cause a conflict, and then allows you to be understood and allows your idea or whatever was important to you to share to be well received inside of your partner. So there's a lot of this stuff we are not taught in our schools. This is not stuff that we're brought up with unless we were gifted with that example with our parents. It's stuff that we have to seek out and learn. So then the next one is being able to just understand the fundamental principles that a lasting relationship is founded upon. So one of the things that I did early in my research of relationships was to really take a look at thriving relationships, and then to take a look at relationships that were going through divorce. And I had my own firsthand experience with my parents. My mom, she went through a few different divorces, and so did my dad, and so did my step parents. And so there's a lot of divorce around me. So I really wanted to know, okay, so if a thriving relationship can work, or if it exists, if I can trust or believe in love ever, what is that? Where is it? And what entails it? So those are some of the things that I started to seek out. And I started to find these trends around what was inside of these relationships as a fundamental perspective or operating principle that these relationships all had, that were thriving, that no one else had. So, so that's something to really take a look at. This is very valuable information that we should all share with each other. And it's not just about communication, things like having a friendship, at the core of everything. And sometimes like what are those aspects of that friendship? For example, one of those things is being able to unconditionally love your partner despite the mistakes, despite the things, and still stand up for what's important to you, and still have that self-respect, and still, have all of those things intact. So the fundamental principles is also important. Let's see. So just in review, we talked about moving through conflict. We talked about healing your wounds. We talked about moving trust and integrity, speaking your voice, and the fundamental principles. And there's one more. What is it? Oh no, I think we talked about them because we talked about passion and desire. So there you go. So we have all 6. Those are the ones that I share with everyone as the things to know, the tenets to know if you want to create a relationship that absolutely thrives and lasts through the test of time. I'll talk to you later. Bye.